We have grown in a few areas as far as gas is concerned. If you look at our economy today, look at how much we're earning from LNG, billions of dollars that is helping to grow our economy. Well, it's in the right direction. Look at the pipelines within the system that we've built so far. We have about 198 trillion cubic feet of gas. But unfortunately, we are ranked 20th, below 20th in production. If you put it in terms of the user, and you must pipe it to that user, there must be a long-term arrangement between you and the user for it to make any sense. But what has happened here is that because we started with crude oil, we built all our policies, all our laws, all our regulations around oil. Then we now try to sit down and fit gas into that regulation, into those policies, and it has failed woefully. So what do we need now? When you reel out all the other issues, for me particularly, the most important are the policies that will guide gas utilization, infrastructure growth, and then trying to utilize gas for what we want to do with it. Look at, when we think in terms of using gas to power, we're having loads and loads of issues of utilizing our gas to generate electricity. One, you take a look at the infrastructure available even for electricity. We produce today about 5 megawatts. If you do anything more than 5 megawatts, you lose it to the atmosphere because the infrastructure is not even there for transmission and for distribution. We tried initially in Falcon about 6 years ago. Well, now we talk about lighting Nigeria. Lagos tried light up Lagos. Ours was light up Ikorodu. And what did we do? We discussed with the then government. Can we deploy about 5 megawatts plants in 10 places strategically in Ikorodu, pipe gas to them, and generate electricity that will go directly into the distribution lines. That way, we told the government of Fashola then that we could light up Ikorodu 24/7, and we meant to do it. But towards the twilight of his administration, the discourse came in. We tried to carry the discourse on board. It failed because they asked the question, how would you collect your money? And we said, perfect. We divide it into 10 zones, put in franchisees in the 10 zones, look at the population, and then put a cost to it. He gives us a bank guarantee. Then we sell light to them, and they will pay back. That way, you can have a seamless flow of energy into light in a corridor, and then give everybody like 24/7. We were thinking that would be an experiment. If that works, that can be done in Lagos by GasLink between Apapa and Ikeja.
Did it work?
But it didn't work. We didn't even get there because even now that we try to get the discourse involved in it, I think they're a bit suspicious. Okay. Because
so let's hold it there. Then we'll get back to that.
Exactly.
Now, Bola, what's your take? Is Nigeria on course in driving development of the gas sector?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'll answer your question in two parts. I think the first part speaks to the future of gas vis-a-vis renewables, right? And there's been a lot of activity, there's been a lot of noise, and even investment as it relates to renewables. But I think the question here is, are we at the point where we go gung-ho fully into renewables and then neglect, in quotes, some of the capabilities and some of the capacity that we've already begun to build? I'll tell you one thing that we've advised our clients world over as a consultant is that when you are going into a venture, make sure you are leveraging on capabilities that exist or capabilities that you already have. And so the question would now be, do we think that it is in the best interests of Nigeria to neglect proven reserves of about 197 TCF and then start to pursue renewable options fully? Or is it a question of, should we have some sort of diverse portfolio, in which case we leverage our capabilities? I think we should be at a point where we are drivers and not being driven. I think just because there's a new thing in town, we should not, as a matter of principle, begin to just start to go after that thing. I think we also need to look at what we have, what are our strategic advantages, what can we leverage, and how can we take advantage of those things. And I think the second part really has to do with how much traction we've really made in the area of gas. I think to answer that question, I think generally you have to take it all the way down to how gas is used in country. And obviously you know that almost half of what we produce as gas is either re-injected or fled. Another huge chunk is exported, which I think, I've heard some of the speakers that spoke earlier made a case for using gas to drive internal capacity and internal development. So obviously there's been analysis proven that GDP per capita would rise if you utilize your gas internally, right? Because it will drive production, and production will drive jobs, and to drive all of these things, all of these nice things, right? So, but there's that bit that goes out of the country. So the question is, what do we want to do? Do we want to focus on internal capacity development? Do we want to also, like I said earlier, also have a diverse mix, which is balance what we're exporting, look inwards, look at what we're re-injecting and what we are flaring, and do we want to make that case? I mean, there's always the issues of pricing. I think if you ask anybody about gas and ask what are the main issues with gas supply and distribution in country, I think the first thing you hear is either price or bankability, right? And I think a lot of focus has to be placed in that regard. I think, generally speaking, the price of gas, people would say should be around the $5 range. There's also an argument to say 2.5 is sufficient when you also include the fact that there's a 0.8 component for transport. I mean, so I think these are some of the things. And then when you take that further down the line, we're using it for commercial use, for generation of fertilizers, petrochemicals. We're using it for power generation. I think right now there's a lot of focus on power generation, but we also forget that only 14% of what we produce goes there. And we look at what goes into the power pool. There's already a bit of discomfort by a lot of Nigerians on what they